Being a freelancer seems like the dream to a lot of people. They imagine the freedom to work on creative projects anywhere in the world, anytime they like the little silhouette guy on the cover of the 4-Hour Workweek. But it's not all cabanas and palm trees. You have to actually do some work. You're responsible for running and growing a business. Your income may be inconsistent or unpredictable at times. And worst of all, you have to go out there and talk to people and convince them to give you money. What's that about? I don't see the silhouette guy doing any of that. So, is freelancing all it's cracked up to be? What's it like in reality, and what should you know if you want to succeed as a freelancer? In this video, I'm going to share some of the strategy and decisions that helped me to flourish as a freelancer, as well as some of the traps that I fell into, which ended up harming some of my professional relationships and my finances. Angel.
I am never going to financially recover from this.
So whether you're curious about going freelance or you've already taken the plunge, by the end of this video, you're going to be a whole lot smarter and more empowered to make the right decisions for you in your creative career. Now let's get started.
The expression, be yourself, has become so cliche, it's almost meaningless, which is why I've decided to become Nicolas Cage. There's value in being authentic to your own beliefs in life and as a freelancer, which is why the Nicolas Cage voice has suddenly stopped. So if you act like your true self, you're going to attract like-minded people and you're going to filter out the others. But this is something I struggled with a bit fairly early on. I was masking, caused a lot of communication problems, as you just witnessed then. I was trying to be professional, which I'm clearly not doing in this video, as opposed to just being myself, which you could argue I am. As a result, I also wasn't expressing my views and putting my ideas forth confidently, and I didn't really earn the respect of my peers and my clients. You could argue I still don't have that respect from my peers, but at least I've got it from my clients, as long as they don't find the YouTube channel, So now I stand up for my views, I voice my perspective confidently, I express how and why I've made creative decisions instead of assuming the client's just gonna see the visual and see the vision that I'm seeing. So obviously there are a lot of benefits to this. You provide context and that helps them buy into your ideas. It shows that I care and that I have their best interest in mind. And it also shows my clients that I know what I'm talking about, which is a foundation of trust and respect, because people can only trust you if you trust yourself. People can only respect you if you respect yourself. And when you stand up for what you believe in, people respect that. That's what real professionalism is about. It's taken a lot of time for me to get to the point where I'm at, and I've got plenty of work to do, believe me, but I'm on the right path. And this whole idea of showing your personality relates to my next point.
Let's go!
In the age of generative AI, it has never been more important to stand out and differentiate yourself with a human touch. Unfortunately, in my case, this means doing poor quality accents that sort of go from perhaps Italian to French, and sort of this imprecise, accent. Should I try this all again? I think I should. I really should. It's the age of generative AI. In the age of generative AI, it has never been more important to stand out and differentiate yourself with a human touch. This is so bad. This is so bad. Can I just do it normally? In the age of generative AI, it has never been more important to stand out and differentiate yourself with a human touch. It seems obvious, but let me give you an example. of a time that I didn't really follow through on this. I was referred to a new potential client. We'll call him Simon to respect his privacy. I'd built this whole sort of onboarding structure for bringing on new clients. We're at a contract and I would just take all his information, plop it in, attach it into a templated email where I'd just pop in his details and just sent it off. And I assumed he was just gonna say yes because I'd thought of every possibility, hadn't I? Well, the next day I got a call from Simon saying that he was quite unhappy with the way that I treated him. He thought that he was being treated like an inconvenience rather than a person to engage with, rather than someone that I wanted to work with, which he was. And obviously I found this very confronting. I had to take a step back and reflect on what I'd done wrong. And yeah, during the course of our phone call, I really listened to him and what he was saying, and I acknowledged that I was in the wrong. I had spent a lot of time crafting this sort of formal language and this jargon that I thought would make me sound professional and seem professional, like I did in my sort of corporate days. And I forgot the alternative, which is just to have real, honest conversations with a human connection. I got so caught up in trying to be efficient that I forgot to be human. So we took a breather, we reset, and re-engaged with that honesty and that humanity as the basis of our relationship. And as a result, we've had a much healthier professional relationship. But if I didn't change my tune, and if Simon wasn't generous enough to give me that second chance, then I might have fumbled the opportunity entirely. Do you know when a bad time to fumble is? During an egg and spoon race. And you know where you shouldn't put all your eggs? In one basket. Think about that. So when I started out freelancing, I had one main client. They were about 70 to 80% of my revenue. So when they hired an in-house designer to take care of some of the work, I was quite affected by that. My income was affected quite significantly, and I just wasn't prepared enough for it. I knew it was coming. Fair play to them. They let me know that they were thinking about it. I just didn't do enough to prepare. I just didn't do enough. I had a quiet 2 months as a result, and I had to sort of scramble to build some new momentum. And it would have been a lot smarter if I had pursued that work before I needed to. So my advice to you is to actively pursue new work opportunities rather than waiting for them to magically appear in front of you, so that you have a diverse source of income in case anything changes. If one of your clients no longer needs support or something changes in their circumstances, you'll be okay. There have been a few too many times where I've had to revise a project after submitting it because I relied too heavily on assumptions. In a lot of cases, I knew that there was something I wasn't quite sure about and that I should clarify, but sometimes I was just afraid of asking what could be a stupid question, or of being annoying, or I felt that there was time pressure at play and I used that as an excuse to just not ask the question. But it's not professional to do this. Whatever the excuse, you should always look for an answer and get that great brief, because if you create work based on assumptions or an incomplete brief, you're just wasting time and you're gonna have to do that work over again. The right question can be the difference between a good design and a great design, a good outcome and a great outcome. Plus, it makes your job a whole lot easier when you actually know what you're aiming for, what that target is you're trying to shoot. Getting a good brief is the designer's equivalent of measure once and cut twice. No, don't do that. Measure twice and cut once. Yeah. Clarify the brief, then you can fulfill it, is the point. To get a great brief, you need to learn one fundamental skill. Communication. Now, to illustrate this point, I'm going to tell you a story that designer Robert taught me. So he's been a freelancer for about 20 years. He was working on a client project sort of early in his career. It spanned a couple of months, but what Robert did was, instead of billing monthly, decided that he would bill the client at the end of the project. During the project, he didn't provide a cost estimate. He didn't really give project updates. So when that project came to a finish, he went to invoice the client. They were pretty shocked to see one huge monster of an invoice amounting to several tens of thousands of dollars. The client was so shocked, they ran away with his work and never contacted him again. which is pretty disgusting. They took his work, ran away, and milked him like a goat. So Robert's lesson from that experience and his advice to me is to make sure you agree on things like scope and cost estimates, provide any progress updates along the way of a project, and just communicate effectively with clients from start to finish so there are no surprises. Obviously, that was a shitty client and they could have still ghosted him even if he did all the right things, but there was another avenue and another bit of advice that he gave me, and this is a pretty crucial one. Protect yourself. Now, there are many different ways to protect yourself as a freelancer, and the first main, most obvious one is to hire a team of bodyguards. Now, a team of bodyguards will protect you at all hours from the mobs of rival freelancers, agencies, designers, creatives, people with AI in their job title on LinkedIn, and other forms of bullshit artists out in the universe who want to stab little knives into your back and eat you for dinner. That was meant to be a joke, but I think I lost the plot there. Jokes aside, you should make sure that you protect yourself legally. This looks like I'm going to do like a segue to a sponsor. I've got no sponsors. You're okay. It's just me. Protect yourself legally. I have a standard contract for bigger clients and larger projects. You can find a whole bunch of reputable templates online from lawyers in various jurisdictions, states, countries, specifically for freelance graphic designers. So I got some that are relevant to what I need, just a standard client agreement. You can also get like a terms and conditions for your website or privacy policy, all that sort of stuff if you need it as well. It might cost you a couple $100 up front, but it's definitely worth it if you're planning on doing this long term. The next one is business insurances. The main one for freelancers would be income protection insurance. So, if you fracture your wrist on a skiing trip, then you're probably too much of a rich cunt to care. But if you tripped over taking the bins out and now your arm's in a cast for 3 months, that it's handy to know you're going to get paid for at least some of that time and get a percentage of your income back. It's not too expensive. I think I only pay about 35, 40 Australian dollars per month. The next one is to get your finances in order and be smart about them. So set aside money for your retirement fund, which is your superannuation account if you're Australian, 401k if you're American. And if you're from Europe, Africa, or South America, or Antarctica, that's cool. If you get a big project and a big chunk of money coming in, avoid the temptation to go on a spending spree or do anything silly like that so that you have some leeway for any quiet periods as well. And set aside money for tax too. Again, this is one that should seem really obvious, but I've got another story to tell you. So I was doing some wall decals for an office for a print client that I work with, and the client wasn't exactly sure what they wanted. So there was a bit of back and forth, quite a few revisions. Then when we got the artwork to be finalized, the installer went out and took the measurements just to double check. And on one of them, I had to add an extra 200 millimeters to the width of the artwork. Unfortunately, when I put that through, I must have been rushing because when it was installed on the wall, we noticed that 200 mil had just been added to a single side, so the wall artwork was off-centered. And that was pretty frustrating, very disappointing for the client, and so the installer and I agreed to reinstall it at my expense because it was my mistake. I wish I had just slowed down. It's important to exercise caution in your work, but that being said, don't be so cautious that you don't take any action at all, which brings me to my next point. Now, this is some advice that I heard a couple of years ago. It has frankly served me quite well in life. So this applies for beginner freelancers or people considering going into freelance. You might be afraid of all the tech, the admin, the finance stuff, But if you're a creative, then what you really do is, by definition, you're a problem solver. So why couldn't you solve the problem of educating yourself about tax or finance or a new piece of software? Like, these are all problems that can be solved, and you can find a way to do it that aligns with your style of learning new things. We all accumulate limiting beliefs throughout our life. So that's beliefs that sort of hold us back from taking action or from doing something or from trying something or expressing ourselves in a certain way. So for example, one that I've struggled with a lot is, I'm not an athlete, I'm not a sporty person. For other people, it might be, I'm not a math person or I'm not a tech person. There are so many different ways that we all experience this in life. It's important to remember that those beliefs are just beliefs. They're just thoughts. And just because we're thinking them doesn't mean they're necessarily true. In a lot of cases, it's been that we've heard these voices from other people saying that we're not good at this, and we sort of internalize that. The important thing is to work through those beliefs so that we can let them go and stop blocking ourselves so we can actually move forward and do the things that we really want to get to in life. So in the case of being a freelancer, if that's you're not familiar with like tech or a piece of software or finance or something, you can learn that and you are capable. It's just you've probably been told or you've told yourself that you're not good at it, and you just need to build some evidence for the opposite case. And you need to be patient with yourself because it's gonna be hard and it's gonna take time. So for example, in the case of me having that thought of, I'm not athletic or I'm not sporty, that stopped me from enjoying things like going to the gym because I thought, I'm never gonna get results or all this crap. There was so much crap in my head that just didn't need to be there. And now I've worked through that through a lot of time, some journaling, some mindfulness, some therapy. There's a lot of stuff you can do to help you recognize and let that go. Now I enjoy the gym. If you're a freelancer afraid of learning a piece of tech, then don't let that stop you. Don't let fear blind you from what you know deep down is the right decision or the right path. It's not a one-way door becoming a freelancer. If you try it for some time and you realize it's not for you and you want to go back to regular employment, there is nothing wrong with that. Absolutely nothing wrong with that. And anyone who tells you otherwise is probably selling you something or they're just a dickhead. That being said, freelance is not for everyone, and I encourage you to keep in mind this next piece of advice as well. If you love working in a team, you love getting in the weeds and getting really deep into your creative work. If you're not interested in business and the responsibilities of sales, admin, and managing accounts, talking to clients, if you want to be able to talk to senior designers day to day in your workplace, and if you like having a set structure that's sort of made for you, then maybe freelance is not for you at this time in your life. There's absolutely nothing wrong with employment, like I've said before, and don't listen to any gurus or entrepreneur bullshit artists on the internet who are trying to sell you their online courses. Listen to yourself. You're the person who knows your life the best, besides your mum, obviously. I think it's important to be self-aware and to listen to that truth within you. If you're curious, if you're excited about being a freelancer and you're also realistic and you've given some time to think about it, to mitigate any unnecessary risks, then I really encourage you to try it. And I think you shouldn't let anything get in your way. But there is a big struggle that all freelancers and all independent business owners face, and that's loneliness. Freelance can be a very lonely journey, but it doesn't have to be. Finding a community of like-minded people can help you stay sane and motivated. You can share your successes with each other, vent your frustrations, and connect during times of struggle. But how exactly do you go about finding a community? Well, allow me to introduce you to this revolutionary piece of technology. It's called Google. It's in the top bar if you use Google Chrome. Or if you actually care about your data privacy, you could use like DuckDuckGo on Safari, join the duck gang on the duck hunt. But who would do that? Who would bother with that? Oh. In major cities, there are places like the Design Kids, which have chapters across the world, Creative Mornings, which I also believe the same. There's the Commons, which is based in Sydney and Melbourne. And there's also Youngbloods, which is for advertising industry in Australia. You can also look at Meetup, and Eventbrite, which are decent once you sift through the AI, crypto, tech sales, business money, chakra alignment stuff. After you get through that, it's like some actual good stuff, some good stuff in there. You just gotta look for the diamonds in the rough. Also, you can just go to your local cafe, library, or a co-working space is a great one if you wanna build regular relationships with people that you see every day. And you can also do what I've done a couple of times, which is go on site, like join a team, do a little contract for a month or two, and build some relationships there. Outside of work-related stuff, I've also joined a local community theatre for a while. I joined a writers group, which I'm a part of, and I study film in the evenings as well for a bit of fun. Now again, the term mentor is one of those that's a bit overused, but I think that everyone who has a different experience from you can become a mentor in a way. There's something to be learned from everyone, even if what you learn is just that someone else's approach or philosophy just doesn't work for you and doesn't align with your values and what you're trying to do with your life and career. I've met a few sort of mentor figures at community groups like the Design Kids. I've attended inspiring talks at creative mornings. All of this altogether has helped me. People have shared wisdom from their experiences that has guided me throughout my creative career. I've developed my portfolio and I've adjusted my direction. I've steered the ship in the right direction that I want to go in. Now, in terms of finding a so-called mentor, it's not a formal arrangement, so don't approach it like one. I find that going into any sort of professional relationship, just having no expectations is the sort of best way to approach it. Don't force anything. Just be curious about people, ask questions, and usually they're quite happy to answer. People like talking about themselves. Helping other people also generally fills people with satisfaction and makes them feel important. So it's a win-win exchange for you and any sort of mentor-like figure. Now, what freelancers generally do is they trade time for money. Now, there's nothing wrong with doing that to get started, but to build a long-term business, I think the most important thing is to learn to trade value for money. So something that is of value that a client is purchasing. So that might be a repeatable package of services that you offer or a specific outcome that you offer to your clients, rather than just, I'm just going to work on this project and the amount of hours I do is the amount of money you pay me. This is something I'm still working on myself, but the logic checks out to me from every reputable business book or resource I've encountered. Find a target market or a specific problem to solve and cater to that specifically. Gives you a lot of advantages. You move from just being a generalist who has loads of competition, there are loads of graphic designers out there, to becoming a specialist who has a unique selling point, so a unique target audience or a unique service line that you sort of focus on. And you can also become an expert at in that field by targeting your marketing and your product. And you can charge higher prices by being that expert because you have a high perceived value. It also allows you to develop a clear brand and talk to your audience really clearly. You can build up offerings and repeatable packages that you offer to clients, and it can help you to scale. You go to where you're trading value for money instead of just selling your time. You're not just a freelancer, you're a business owner, and that's the key difference. This process generally takes years, as it should, because you can't become an expert overnight. But what I'm starting to do, as per a recent video, is to take this area of expertise, which I'm really fascinated in, which is print design, and find a target audience for that and sort of build a business around that. And that's something I'm really excited about. If you're interested, you can check out the next video here, I think, or there, maybe. And there we are, 12 lessons from my first 12 months as a freelance graphic designer. Please like and subscribe if you've enjoyed the journey so far. And if you're interested in more weird, wacky stuff about graphic design, freelancing, creative careers, and the occasional wild design challenge, then be sure to subscribe, huh? Catch you later, freaks. That was weird.